Okay, welcome to another episode of Rental House versus High-Income ETFs. I'm going to call this episode subtitle Dividend Snowball Has Begun because this experiment is starting to take off like I thought it would from the beginning. Actually, it started off really good. And we had tariffs and all those things, and then it went south for a little bit, but now it's starting to do what I expected it to do. So we hope to keep that going. So dividend snowball has begun, and we'll see what that means. Where am I at here? Gotta find my mouse cursor. So my YouTube channel is a hodgepodge of things. It's not just finance stuff. It's about other things too. It's about some travel. It's about kayaking, biking. Also, my hobby of restoring tombstones and old cemeteries and things like that. But you can just tune in for the financial stuff here. I also make videos with my granddaughter as far as she's got a Roth IRA, and we are super aggressive in that account. We are investing things like Misty and Alti and MSTX and some curve funds, all types of crazy things. Okay, let's get to it here. So this account here is Robinhood account, and I should mention that at the beginning, we sold a rental house and we sold several rental houses, actually. One of the last ones we sold, we took 70,000 of the proceeds, which was approximately what the house was worth before we put a lot of improvements into it. And we put that money into some covered call ETFs, high income ETFs. And this is an experiment to see how that would do compared to if we would have kept the house, let's say. So anyhow, where we at? We have equity of 81,435. So we've broken over the $80,000 mark, and we are using margin 71,926 in margin. That's gone up a little bit, and you'll see why in a few minutes. And I consider margin mortgage on a rental property, so it doesn't scare me, doesn't worry me. I'm fine using margin for this experiment. For this account, we're playing it aggressive, and this is money that we don't rely on to retire on or live on. This is my version of going to Las Vegas and having fun, but I think it's safer and I have more control and I understand it better. So what exactly do I have for cover calls? Let's start at the bottom because that's right. I started with QDTE and we got 2,700 shares. I didn't start with 2,700, but I've added those over time. And then I started adding some AIPI. We have 700 shares right now. That's gone up a little bit because I bought 50 shares last week. We have QQQI. We have 150 shares. A week ago, I bought 50 shares of that also. We have SPYI, 200 shares. And then we have GIAX, 500 shares. I've been buying GIAX for a while, and they sent me a hat a while back. They're not sponsoring this video or anything, but I appreciate a free hat. They also sent me another hat for their newer ETF BLOX, and I actually don't own any BLOX yet. I may add that to my retirement account as I get distributions rolling in. I'm looking for something to expand in. I may expand to BLOX. I want to see if BLOX uses return of capital. If it does, maybe I'll add some to this account. And return of capital is a tax strategy I use to avoid paying tax. Currently, kind of kicking that tax obligation down the road a little bit, but you can Google return of capital as far as there's good return of capital and there's bad return of capital. I'm talking about the good return of capital. Okay, let's keep on going. I like to throw this in each week and look at the S&P 500 charts. This is SPY S&P 500. I like to see what it's doing. This is a 6-month chart. This is a Bollinger Band. This middle line is a 20-day moving average. And I want to point out a couple things here. The Bollinger Band, the upper and lower bands are starting to converge, starting to narrow. The moving average is right there, and it's at the top. The price is at the top of the Bollinger Band. That could mean a couple things. It could mean that this is narrowing and it's going to break out and go even higher faster, or it means if you throw in the relative strength index of 75, means that it's overbought. The stock market is overbought, and we're looking for a decline. One of two things. It could either break out and go higher, or it could pull back some. I'm thinking it's going to continue doing what it's doing, slowly upwards, and then we'll have a natural pullback in the next several months. So what have I done the past week or two? So as my wife would say, what have you done? What did you do? So I bought some more shares of some things, bought 50 shares of AIPI, and I bought 50 shares of QQQI. I couldn't decide which one to buy. So my thought process, I like AIPI because I like that juicy 35% annual distribution, 35%. And it's based on the price you pay for it. So $43 is what I paid for it. You look back here, I bought other shares, 49. I bought some for 50. So am I getting 34% off the $50 here? No. So it's paying 34% on the $43, not 34% on the $50. So my return on the shares that I bought back here is probably more in the 30% range, or maybe just a little bit less. And my return on the things I'm buying currently is like 34%. Well, some people are selling their AIPI and investing in something else, but can they get 30% on something else? I don't know if they can or not. They could, maybe not. Anyhow, I'm adding a little bit of AIPI. I'm going to get that up to 750 shares. Click back here. So I'm at 700. I'm going to get that to 750. And then at that point, I'm going to just keep alternating between SPYI and QQQI for a while, buy 50 here, 50 there, 50 here, and go back and forth and build these two. So these two, SPYI and QQQI, are going to be my anchor holdings in this account, if that makes sense. So these are going to be the main holdings. These two, AIPI, QDTE, if the NAV keeps going down, or let's say it goes down, it's been going up, but let's say we have another dip and doesn't recover and it just keeps doing that, I'm just going to keep taking these distributions from these two and build up positions in SPY and QQQI. It's not going to grow as fast as if I have these two, but any downward turn, I think these will hold the NAV better, and overall, long term, it should perform pretty equal, but I won't have those big dips that will make me nervous as I get older and anxiety builds up, those types of things. The GIAX is just holding its own and doing its thing. So I'll just hang on to these 500 shares and see how those do. And maybe I'll try to bump this up to 1,000 shares at some point. I could buy 100 shares every now and then for about $1,800 and earn 24% return. I'll just wait and see how I feel. Sometimes I don't know when I'm buying. As my margin goes down a little bit, I like, okay, I got a few thousand here. What should I buy? And sometimes I sit here and stare at this and have thoughts that maybe I should buy this or buy that. And then I just pull the trigger and do something. So anyhow, I bought the AIPI, QQQI. And let's look, see what else is going on. Recent activity. What has happened recently? Lots of things have happened recently. Let's go down here at the bottom in the order of what things happened. Well, here I bought the 50 shares of AIPI, and then I bought the 50 shares of QQQI, and then I received a distribution for AIPI of 826, a distribution of QQQI of 63, a distribution for SPYI of 102, and then a distribution for QDTE for 636. And here they are in this Excel chart. I keep track of this weekly and monthly. So here you can see my monthly returns of the amounts of the distributions, 3,500. Looks like April and June were the down months, and then December was a very good month, but QDTE paid out huge distributions, I think, because they had to wrap up some tax consequences for the end of the year, I believe. So this month we are sitting at 3,200. I still have one distribution from GIAX that I should be receiving soon, and that should be around $180. So I will end up with about 3,400, which is pretty good. Next month should be even better because QDTE pays weekly. And next month, there are 5 Fridays in August. And because there's 5 Fridays, I'll get 5 payments from QDTE. So I'm looking at perhaps close to $4,000 in distributions. Plus, I bought a few more shares of AIPI and QQQI. So that will bump the distributions up a little bit. So like I said, I'm looking at about a $4,000 month here. And this chart here is what I projected. These columns over here, I configured before I started this project, put some thought into it. These first couple rows up here, I was originally just going to update this once a month. I expected this to grow about 3.5% monthly. This is weekly, but I started out monthly. And then in February, I started doing this weekly. And so I changed that to 0.75 or 1%. And so this is what I expect it to average. I expect it to be about 93,000 right now. Total invested 163,000 when you count the margin. I would expect it to be up 33% since the beginning. This started around November 1st. This column right here represents how much margin I'm using compared to the equity. So 70,000 is approximately 75% of 93,000. So this is what I expected things to look like. Over here, things are actually doing. I started out with 70,000. And at one point I was up to 79,000, and everything went south. I was down to 49. Now it's creeping back up. I'm at 81,000. So I'm at 81,435 compared to 93. So I'm 12,000 behind where I thought I was. Now, margin, I'm using more margin than what I had planned. I'm at 71,009 total invested. I'm at 153,000. I expect to be 163,000. This column is how much it's growing each week. This is what I expected to grow. Over here is what is actually happening. I had a big down week here, 21%, but then we had a couple up weeks, 12%, and one 10%. In the past couple weeks, we've been where 7%, 1%, about a half of 1%, 2%, 2% approximately. So for total, we're up 16%, and I'm using 88% of margin compared to my equity. So that doesn't mean I'm using 88% of margin on my Robinhood account. I still have probably 40 or 50,000. I think I can use like $120,000 in margin. I'm at 71,000. So I'm nowhere near getting in trouble with margin, and I keep an eye on that. So I don't think anything crazy is going to happen, but who knows? So if somebody would have said, doing your experiment here, you'd end up at 16% return from November to July, I'd say, hey, that's not bad. That's pretty good. I'll take that. But when you compare it over here, where I'm only half where I want to be, it looks disappointing. But anyhow, compared to where it was at 49,000 and it's back up to 81,000, that's a pretty good jump. Now, will it continue that pace? I doubt it, but will continue the pace about 1% per week. It might. In the subtitle of this week's experiment is called the Dividend Snowball. So I think the Dividend Snowball is starting to kick in at $4,000 a month. I can add probably close to 100 shares of different ETFs each month. And here, I said this is to compare the ETFs with the rental house. So the rental house, if I would have kept the rental house, this is about where I'd be. I'd be collecting $700 a month in rent, 80 in insurance, 200 in taxes. This is how much I have in the checking account if nothing else had gone bad. I calculate some equity growth here of 4% per year. So that comes up to be $233 a month. So total so far 72,000 in equity. I'd have almost 76,000. And when you compare the two, so the rental house, 75,877. And the ETF is sitting at 81,435. So the ETFs are up 55, 58. So this is the type of results I really expected. Besides all the other hassle of dealing with renters and plugged sewer lines and broken windows and boyfriend girlfriend fights and all types of other problems and not having the rent and all those headaches, I'll take the ETFs, even if things were totally equal. And people say you got tax advantages of rental property, you can depreciate and all those other things. Yes, I know all about that. And but I also know when you sell the property, you gotta recapture that depreciation, you can pay tax. But these ETFs have a tax advantage too by the return of capital. For tax reasons, the initial payment back is return of capital, so you don't pay tax on that. Later, once you get all the return of capital, 100% of your initial investment, you start paying tax at the capital gain rate. So I'm not a tax expert, but I do pay taxes and I know what my tax return says and I know what's going on. So there are tax advantages to this too. So there you have it. This one's long because I'm a happy camper here this week. Things are going the way it's supposed to be going. So we'll wrap it up and we'll see you next week. And don't forget to subscribe so I can get to 1,000 subs so I can make $5 a week on my YouTube channel. Thanks.